Welcome to the Untethered Airway podcast, where airway health meets real-life impact. I'm Dr. Maggie Graham.
I'm Dr. Liz Turner.
And we're the moms and airway-focused dentists who founded the Untethered Airway Health Center. On this podcast, we're pulling back the curtain on the root causes of breathing and sleep challenges,
helping families and fellow providers understand how airway-focused care can change lives.
Because it's not just about teeth, it's about total body health.
Let's dive in.
Still struggling. What we miss when we miss the airway. Episode 3. Always sick, always tired, chronic illness, immunity, and the airway connection. Hey, I'm Maggie Graham. I started this series, Still Struggling, as part of the Untethered Airway podcast. It's a series dedicated to uncovering common childhood symptoms that very commonly go ignored or underdiagnosed or just totally overlooked. I'm Dr. Maggie Graham. I'm a co-founder of Untethered Airway Health Center. I'm a mom, a dentist, an airway advocate, and I believe that when we overlook breathing as a root cause of very foundational things, our children's health suffer for a lifetime. So this series emerged from a response I wrote to Children's Wisconsin, who has published a series of articles that unfortunately dismiss parents' concerns, and they continue to do so. While I don't believe in fear-mongering, I do believe in offering parents solutions and the respect of listening to them and their concerns. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today. Who have published a series of articles that unfortunately are dismissive. They dismiss parents' concerns. They offer condescending reassurances without real solutions. And today's episode is about kids who seem to always be sick, always congested, always tired. We're going to explore how these chronic illnesses often circle back to one critical thing, a dysfunctional airway. Let's dive in. So, always sick. What's really going on? We hear it all the time. My kid's in daycare, my kid's in school. You're a parent or provider, you know these kids. They're constantly battling colds. They have endless ear infections, sore throats, boogers running down their face, sinus congestion. They miss school. They're always on antibiotics. And you're told repeatedly, they'll grow out of it. Don't worry. It's normal. It's common. But what if growing out of it isn't a solution? It's just waiting until a deeper problem creates even bigger challenges, different compensations down the road. What if the real issue behind the chronic illnesses is actually a breathing problem, dysfunctional breathing, and the body is just figuring out how to get it in? Let's unpack that. Breathing and immune function. Healthy breathing happens through the nose. The nose filters, warms the air, humidifies the air. It supports healthy oxygen exchange, and therefore it improves immunity. It produces nitric oxide. But many of these chronically sick kids aren't nasal breathers. They're mouth breathers. Their lips are parted. They snore. Their noses are blocked up. So I actually didn't know until I fell down this rabbit hole that there was a difference between nasal breathing and mouth breathing. It is so common to see emojis of snoring people, kids with their mouths wide open when they're sleeping in a show or on TV. And we have just become so comfortable with the commonality of mouth breathing that I didn't even know it was problematic. But nasal breathing is foundational to our health. So when we breathe through our nose, it warms the air, it humidifies the air, it filters the air. It's like our body's filtration system. It produces nitric oxide, which helps the oxygen be exchanged in the blood. It promotes immunity. It's like unbelievably important to our overall well-being. And there's so many patients out there, children and adults, that can't do it. And so then they're more chronically sick and more at risk. So it's something that we need to start understanding that nose breathing is the foundation of health. A 2015 study published in the International Journal of Pediatric Otorhinolaryngology found that chronic mouth breathing was strongly associated with recurrent respiratory infections, sinus inflammation, and enlarged adenoids and tonsils. It's a cycle. Congestion causes mouth breathing. Mouth breathing causes illness. It worsens the congestion, and the child stays chronically ill. But it's not just daytime breathing. What happens at night during sleep matters maybe even more. Children with compromised airways, adults actually too, narrow roofs of the mouth, vaulted palates, small floor of the nose, recessed jaws, enlarged tonsils or adenoids, tethered oral tissues, frequently experience arousals during their sleep. Their sleep is fragmented. Their body's not going through the right sleep architecture. They rarely achieve deep restorative sleeps, and those stages that are essential for immune system repair are compromised. Dr. Gozal in 2008 did research that clearly linked fragmented sleep due to breathing disorders with reduced immune response and increased inflammation. What looks just like a cold or just allergies is often an immune system operating in survival mode, chronically stressed by poor breathing and poor sleep, leading to chronic inflammation and a lifetime of the body overworking. When we see chronically sick kids, we often discover that there's a structural issue that compromises their airway. Narrow upper jaw, I always say that the roof of the mouth is the floor of the nose, recessed chins or their mid-face is set back, enlarged tonsils and adenoids, chronic nasal congestion, maybe a deviated septum or enlarged turbinates, and mouth breathing patterns. So all of these anatomical challenges lead to dysfunction. The body just figures out, how can I breathe? If I can't do it well, I'll do it another way. So you go from nasal breathing, which is ideal, to mouth breathing to survive. And while the human body's ability to adapt is unbelievable, and we're lucky that we have that adaptation skill, it's not healthy. It's not a way that we should be living chronically. So a study in the American Journal of Orthodontics and Dental Facial Orthopedics showed that rapid maxillary expansion, literally widening the palate. So there's arguments about how fast is too fast. That's not the point of this. Literally widening the palate at the sutural level, making a bony change at the midline of the maxillary suture, improve nasal breathing, and significantly reduce respiratory infections and antibiotic need in children. So how do you recognize a kid whose chronic illness might actually be airway related or airway dysfunction related? Look for these red flags: frequent colds, sinus infections, ear infections, snoring, mouth breathing, laying in a funny position when they're sleeping, constantly full of boogers, dark circles under their eyes, or allergic shiners. Those are things that tell us that this kiddo is struggling to breathe. If they chronically have a cough or need to clear their throat, that's inflammation. Fatigue or difficulty focusing, behavioral issues, history of reflux or food aversions, or early feeding issues, all of these things can be connected. If these sound familiar, you're probably seeing signs of a compromised airway and a stressed immune system, not just random illnesses that are coming up from time to time randomly. And this is why we do what we do. Early intervention matters. Why address this now? Because chronic illness isn't something kids just grow out of. The immune system doesn't magically reset at puberty. What actually happens is that kids adapt to dysfunction. We figure it out, but that creates lifelong compensations. Early intervention can change the trajectory of their entire health span, expanding the palate, restoring nasal breathing, optimizing the muscle function, making sure that that tongue is resting on the roof of the mouth and they're swallowing correctly. All of these things can dramatically improve respiratory and overall health, sleep quality, immune function. A recent review published by Dr. Zaghi, a mentor of mine, in 2019, emphasized that addressing airway dysfunction and myofunctional patterns reduces chronic respiratory illnesses significantly. Kids don't have to be sick all of the time. If we catch it early and we recognize these signs, we give them the chance to be healthier for a lifetime. I want to share with you a story about one of my favorite patients. They're all my favorite patients if you haven't caught on yet. An 8-year-old girl, chronically congested, always on antibiotics, ear infections left and right, exhausted and falling behind in school. She breathed through her mouth day and night. She had a very narrow vaulted roof of her mouth. She had enlarged adenoids that were almost completely obstructed. Her tonsils were enlarged. We expanded her palate to idealize her dentition. We started myofunctional therapy. She learned how to nasal breathe. And within months, actually probably even closer to weeks, her chronic infections stopped. Her mom reached out. All the moms reach out. They always celebrate with us, which is so much fun. But they're so excited to see changes that they've been told are no big deal for such a long time. And it wasn't magic. It was physiology. We restored her airway. We optimized her form. We optimized her function, and her body did the rest. It is so annoyingly simplistic that when we start to connect the dots and step back and look at the big picture, we give so many of these patients an opportunity to be healthier than they would be if we just let them cruise on into adulthood. I can go on a tangent right now about how frustrating this is, because I've gotten in some heated arguments with other providers about over-treating or making things more complicated than they have to be. And yes, we're choosing to help families and intervene early to restore optimal form and function. right? We give them that opportunity to jump off of one trajectory onto another. It requires commitment, it requires financial investment, it requires some intervention. But I promise you, as we age, as the compensations change, it doesn't get easier. It doesn't get less expensive. It does not get less involved. It is so much easier to treat a child earlier than it is to treat an adult. Plus, when we treat a child earlier, they're healthier. They suffer less. They have to go through less reactive medicine. And so to think that you're doing patients a favor by saying that they're going to grow out of it or trying to project that finances are a barrier, you're not saving them money. You're not saving them heartache. You're just making decisions for them that end up being very costly in the long run. So what do you do? If you're a parent listening to this and you're a provider listening to this, what do you do? If this sounds like your child or a patient that you see, here's what you can do right now. Start observing their sleep and breathing. Make observations. Literally write it down and see if there seems to be a pattern. Does their sleep seem restless? Do they mouth breathe? Share it with a healthcare provider trained in pediatric airway. Start with your pediatrician, but if you get dismissed, don't stop. Be an advocate for your kiddo's health. Consider a team approach. A lot of dentists that are focused on airway have a team in place or will be an advocate and go to bat for you and help find a team. Myofunctional therapist, an ear, nose, and throat doctor, perhaps a speech therapist, body workers. All of these team members can incrementally help tip the needle for your kiddo and make them healthier. So keep asking questions until someone listens. Keep listening to your gut. If you think there's a problem, there probably is. Kids who are always sick aren't unlucky. They're often breathing poorly. Their bodies are telling us something's wrong, and we owe it to them to look deeper, earlier. When we fix the airway, we give the immune system a fighting chance to do its job rather than just hanging out and living in fight or flight. We shift from chasing illness to supporting health. We stop normalizing chronic sickness, and we start empowering kids and parents with real answers. I really appreciate you joining me today and listening to me rant. I'm still struggling. Next time, we're going to explore pediatric feeding issues and how they often point back to airway and breathing dysfunction. I'm Dr. Maggie Graham. Keep looking deeper and keep asking better questions. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Untethered Airway podcast.
If today's episode helped you see things differently,
Please share it with someone who would benefit from hearing this, and don't forget to subscribe.
want to learn more about airway health or connect with our team?
Please visit our website, untetheredairwayhealthcenter.com, or follow us on Instagram @Untethered Airway.
Until next time, bye!